The wind howled through Miami streets, a tropical storm tearing at the city with unrelenting fury. Rain lashed against the windows of Mercy General Hospital, where the emergency room buzzed with controlled chaos. Nurses darted between gurneys, doctors barked orders, and the air hummed with the urgency of lives hanging in the balance. Amid the storm's wrath, Michael Thornton, a white American billionaire and the CEO of Thornton Medical Solutions, stumbled through the hospital's sliding doors, clutching a gash on his forearm. Now soaked and clinging to his frame, his tailored suit bore the marks of a man caught unprepared by nature's assault. Blood seeped through his fingers, staining the crisp white cuff of his shirt. Emma Carter, an African-American nurse with a steady hand and a no-nonsense demeanor, was triaging a patient when she saw him. Her dark eyes flicked over Michael, assessing him with the precision of someone who'd seen every kind of injury in her 5 years at Mercy General. She noted his pale skin flushed from exertion and how he held himself confident despite the pain. Without hesitation, she guided him to a treatment bay, her voice calm but firm. "Sit," she instructed, pointing to the edge of a bed. "Let me take a look." Michael winced as he lowered himself, his blue eyes meeting hers. "Didn't expect to end my night like this," he said, attempting a smile through gritted teeth. "Storm caught me off guard." Emma didn't return the smile. She pulled on a pair of gloves, her movements efficient. "Storms don't care who you are," she replied, her tone clipped but not unkind. "Hold still." Her touch was gentle, yet precise, as she cleaned the wound, a shallow but jagged cut from a piece of flying debris. The hospital lights flickered the storm outside, rattling the windows, but Emma's focus never wavered. Michael watched her, struck by the contrast between the chaos around them and her quiet strength. Her dark skin glistened faintly under the fluorescent lights, and her braided hair was pulled back neatly, revealing a face that held determination and a trace of weariness. He said, "You're good at this," his voice softer now, less strained. "I mean, really good." Emma's eyes flicked up briefly, then back to her work. "It's my job," she said, wrapping his arm with gauze. "You're lucky it's not deeper. Keep it clean, change the dressing daily, and see a doctor if it gets red or swollen." Michael nodded, but his gaze lingered on her. Something about her, maybe the way she moved with purpose or the way her voice carried a quiet authority, made him want to know more. He opened his mouth to say something else, but a nurse called her name from across the room. "Emma, we need you at Bay 3. She stepped back, peeling off her gloves. "You're good to go," she told him. "Stay out of storms next time." He chuckled, standing. "I'll try." "Thank you, Emma." She gave a curt nod and turned away, already moving toward the next crisis. Michael watched her go, the noise of the ER swallowing her figure. He didn't know why, but he felt a pull, like a thread tugging at his chest. Outside, the storm raged on, but Michael's driver was waiting. His phone buzzed in his pocket as he slid into the back of his sleek black SUV. He pulled it out, expecting a message from his assistant about the meetings he'd missed. Instead, it was an anonymous text, the words stark against the screen. "Mercy General is under investigation for insurance fraud. Watch your back." His jaw tightened. He glanced back at the hospital, its lights a beacon in the downpour. Emma's face flashed in his mind, her steady hands, her unflinching gaze. If the hospital was in trouble, she was part of it, whether she knew it or not. Michael leaned back in his seat, the cut on his arm throbbing faintly. He wasn't one to walk away from a mystery, especially not one tied to someone who just saved him from bleeding out in a storm. The next morning, the storm had passed, leaving Miami drenched but glittering under a relentless sun. Michael sat in his office on the top floor of Thornton Medical Solutions headquarters, a glass tower overlooking Biscayne Bay. Thanks to Emma, his arm was bandaged neatly, but his mind was elsewhere. The anonymous text had kept him up half the night. He'd made calls in the healthcare industry. Whispers of an investigation at Mercy General were real about inflated claims, phantom patients, and missing funds. Nothing concrete, but enough to raise red flags. He leaned forward, staring at his laptop. A quick search brought up Mercy General's staff directory, and there she was, Emma Carter, RN. Her photo showed the same no-nonsense expression she'd worn last night, her dark skin radiant, even in the grainy image. Michael didn't believe in coincidence. He'd ended up in her ER for a reason, and now this investigation loomed like a shadow over them both. His assistant knocked and entered a tablet in hand. "Sir, your 10 o'clock is here. Also, the board wants an update on the new imaging tech." "Push the 10 o'clock," Michael said, standing. "I'm going to Mercy General." The assistant blinked. "The hospital is your arm." "It's fine." He cut in, grabbing his jacket. "I need to check on something." An hour later, he walked through Mercy General's lobby, the antiseptic smell hitting him like a memory. The place was quieter now, the storm's chaos replaced by the steady hum of a busy hospital. He asked for Emma at the front desk, but the receptionist said she was in the middle of a shift. Instead, he found the hospital's administrator, Dr. Helen Ruiz, a sharp-eyed woman with a reputation for getting things done. "Mr. Thornton," she greeted, clearly surprised. "To what do we owe the visit?" Michael smiled, all charm. "I had a minor incident last night. One of your nurses, Emma Carter, patched me up. I wanted to thank her and the hospital. I'm considering a donation to your emergency department." Dr. Ruiz's eyes lit up. "That's generous. We'd be honored. Would you like a tour?" He nodded, following her through the bustling corridors. As they passed the ER, he caught a glimpse of Emma, her dark hands moving swiftly as she adjusted an IV line. She didn't see him, but he saw her focus, tireless, a pillar in the storm of the hospital's daily grind. His chest tightened again, that same pull from last night. The tour ended in Dr. Ruiz's office, where Michael wrote a $2 million check earmarked for the ER. "Make sure it goes to equipment and staff training," he said. "People like Emma deserve the best tools." Dr. Ruiz was practically beaming. "This will make a huge difference. I'll ensure Emma knows about your generosity." Michael shook his head. "No need. Just ensure she gets what she needs to keep doing what she does." As he left the hospital, his phone buzzed again. Another anonymous text. "Check Thornton Medical's books. You're not as clean as you think." His grip tightened on the phone. The accusation hit like a punch, and for the first time he wondered if his impulsive donation had just tied him to a sinking ship. Emma wiped sweat from her brow, and her shift was finally over. The storm had left the ER swamped, and she'd barely had time to breathe. As she changed out of her scrubs, a colleague, Sarah, leaned against the locker next to hers. "Heard you had a VIP last night," Sarah teased. "Michael Thornton, huh? Guy's richer than God." Emma snorted, tossing her scrubs into a bin. "He was just a guy with a cut. Bled like everyone else." Sarah grinned. "Well, that guy just dropped $2 million on the ER. Word is it's because of you." Emma froze her hand on her locker. "What Dr. Ruiz said, he came in today and wrote a check. Said it was for the department, but your name came up." Emma's stomach twisted. She didn't trust rich men bearing gifts, especially not ones like Michael Thornton, with his polished suits and easy smiles. She'd seen his type before, charming, powerful, always with an angle. Her mind flashed to a memory she'd buried deep, a doctor she'd once worked under, charming as hell, who'd nearly cost her career when she called him out for cutting corners. She wasn't about to let another smooth talker pull her into trouble. She grabbed her bag and headed for the exit, her sneakers squeaking on the linoleum. Outside, the Miami sun was blinding, but her thoughts were darker. Michael Thornton might have been grateful, but gratitude didn't come with seven-figure checks. Something was off, and she wasn't about to let it slide. As she stepped into the parking lot, her phone buzzed. She glanced at the screen expecting a text from her sister. Instead, it was an email from an unknown sender. The subject line chilling, "Mercy General's fraud, the truth." Her heart sank. Whatever Michael Thornton was playing at it was bigger than her, and she was already caught in the middle. Emma Carter pushed through the double doors of Mercy General's emergency department, her sneakers silent against the polished floor. The hospital was quieter today, the frenetic energy of the storm replaced by the steady rhythm of routine care. She adjusted her stethoscope around her neck, her mind still churning from yesterday's news. $2 million. Michael Thornton's donation had spread through the hospital like wildfire whispers, following her from the break room to the nurses' station. She didn't like the weight of it, the way colleagues glanced at her, half curious, half envious, as if she'd done something to earn a billionaire's attention. She hadn't seen Michael since that night in the ER, but his presence lingered. The check he'd written was real. Dr. Ruiz had already started drafting plans for new monitors and trauma bays. Emma should have been thrilled. Better equipment meant better outcomes for patients. But every time she thought of Michael, her gut twisted. Men like him didn't give without expecting something back. She'd learned that lesson the hard way years ago when calling out a doctor's negligence had cost her a job and nearly her license. She wasn't about to let history repeat itself. As she checked a patient's chart, Dr. Ruiz approached her clipboard, tucked under one arm. Emma, a word. Emma followed her to a quiet corner of the hallway. Dr. Ruiz's eyes were bright, her voice low with excitement. Thornton's donation is a game changer. I'm putting you in charge of coordinating the new equipment rollout. You're the best we've got. Emma's jaw tightened. Why me? I just patched the guy up. That's it. Dr. Ruiz raised an eyebrow. He mentioned you specifically. Said you're the kind of nurse this place needs more of. Don't sell yourself short. Emma forced a nod, but her unease grew. She didn't want to be anyone's poster child, especially not Michael Thornton's. As Dr. Ruiz walked away, Emma's phone buzzed in her pocket. She slipped it out, expecting a schedule update. Instead, it was a news alert. Thornton Medical Solutions, under scrutiny for ties to insurance fraud probe. Her breath caught. The article was thin on details citing sources close to the investigation, but the implication was clear. Michael's company was tangled in the same mess as Mercy General. She shoved the phone back into her pocket, her pulse quickening. Whatever game Michael was playing, she wouldn't be a pawn. Across town, Michael sat behind his mahogany desk, the Miami skyline sprawling beyond his office window. The news article glared from his laptop screen, the headline like a blade. He'd spent the morning fielding calls from his board, their voices tight with panic. Thornton Medical Solutions had built its reputation on cutting-edge imaging tech and surgical tools, not scandals. The fraud allegations were vague, but damning, and the timing right after he donates to Mercy General felt like a trap. He leaned back in his chair, rubbing his bandaged arm. The cut was healing, but the sting of the anonymous texts lingered. Someone was pulling strings, and he didn't like being a puppet. His thoughts drifted to Emma, her steady hands and sharp eyes. She'd been the one bright spot in the storm, but now she was tied to a hospital under investigation. He needed to see her again to understand what she knew and what she didn't. His assistant buzzed the intercom. "Sir, your car's ready. You said you wanted to revisit Mercy." "General." Michael stood straightening his tie. "Yeah, let's go." The drive to the hospital was quick, the city's palm-lined streets gleaming under the midday sun. The lobby was bustling when he arrived, but he spotted Emma almost immediately. She was at the nurse's station, her head bent over a tablet. He approached his polished shoes, clicking against the floor. "Emma." he said, keeping his tone light. Got a minute? She looked up, her expression guarded. Mr. Thornton, what brings you back? He smiled, hoping to ease the tension and just checking on my investment. Wanted to see how the ERs are holding up. Her eyes narrowed slightly. It's holding up fine. Thanks to your donation, I hear. There was an edge to her voice, one that made Michael pause. You don't sound thrilled about it. Emma set the tablet down, crossing her arms. I'm thrilled for the patients. New equipment saves lives. But I don't know you, and I don't know why you're throwing money at us. People don't do that without a reason. Michael raised an eyebrow, impressed by her bluntness. Fair enough. I may want to do some good. You saved my arm. Call it gratitude. She didn't smile. Gratitude doesn't cost $2 million. What's your angle? He hesitated, weighing his words. He could have charmed his way out, but something about her made him want to be honest. I heard about the investigation, he said quietly, the fraud allegations. I don't know what's happening, but I want to help. That's why I'm here. Emma's face didn't change, but her shoulders stiffened. Throwing money at us fixes that, or are you just covering your own tracks? The accusation stung, but he kept his voice steady. I'm not the bad guy here, Emma. My company's caught in this too. I'm trying to figure out who's behind it. She studied him, her gaze piercing. Then figure it out somewhere else. I've got patients to take care of. She turned back to her tablet, dismissing him. Michael stood there for a moment, caught off guard by her steel. Most people bent under his charm or name, but Emma Carter didn't. He liked that, even if it made things more complicated. As he left the hospital, his phone buzzed with another news alert. Thornton Medical linked to Mercy General in widening fraud probe. The article mentioned his donation, spinning it as a desperate move to buy goodwill. Michael's jaw clenched. Someone was orchestrating this, and they were good at it. That evening, Emma sat in her small apartment, the TV muted in the background. The news article about Thornton Medical was open on her laptop, its words gnawing at her. Michael's visit had rattled her more than she wanted to admit. He'd seemed sincere, but sincerity was a mask she'd seen before. The email about Mercy General's fraud still sat in her inbox unopened since yesterday. She clicked it now, her heart pounding. The message was short, a list of names, doctors, administrators, even a few nurses allegedly involved in inflating claims. Her name wasn't on it, but the hospital's reputation was hers. If Mercy General went down, so did she. And Michael Thornton, with his money and his charm, was too close to the fire for comfort. She closed the laptop and leaned back, staring at the ceiling. She didn't trust him, but she couldn't ignore him either. He was tied to this whether she liked it or not. The question was whether he was a savior or a snake. And Emma Carter wasn't the type to wait for answers, she'd find them herself. The grand ballroom of the Fontainebleau Miami Beach glittered under chandeliers, the air thick with perfume and ambition. The annual Mercy General Gala was a spectacle of wealth and philanthropy, where Miami's elite mingled with hospital staff to raise funds and polish reputations. Emma Carter felt out of place in her borrowed black gown, its sleek fabric hugging her frame as she navigated the crowd. She wasn't here to sip champagne or pose for photos. She was here for answers. The past week had been a blur of whispered rumors and late-night research. The anonymous email about Mercy General's fraud had led her down a rabbit hole of hospital records, revealing padded billing codes and phantom patients. The deeper she dug, the more Michael Thornton's name surfaced, not as a culprit, but as a question mark. His $2 million donation to the ER loomed like a puzzle piece that didn't fit. Was he trying to help, or was he buying silence? Tonight she intended to find out. Emma scanned the room, her eyes catching on Michael across the ballroom. He stood near a group of suited men, his tailored tuxedo accentuating his confident posture. He was laughing, but his eyes darted as if searching for something or someone. When their gazes met, he excused himself and started toward her, weaving through the crowd with purpose. "Emma," he said, his voice warm but cautious. "Didn't expect to see you here." She crossed her arms, her clutch tucked under one elbow. Dr. Ruiz insisted, said it's good for staff morale. "You—" He raised an eyebrow, a faint smile playing on his lips. "I'm a donor. Comes with the territory." "Right," she said, her tone dry. "Big donor, big spotlight." Michael's smile faltered, but he didn't bite back. Instead, he gestured toward the bar. "Can I get you a drink? You look like you could use one." She hesitated, then nodded. "Club soda." "I'm not here to loosen up." He ordered her a drink and a whiskey for himself, handing her the glass with a look that felt too knowing. "You don't trust me," he said, not a question. Emma sipped her soda, and the bubbles were sharp against her tongue. "I don't know you. And I don't like surprises, your name popping up in fraud rumors, right after you drop millions on my hospital." His jaw tightened, but he kept his voice low. "I'm not the one you should be worried about. My company's being dragged through the mud too. Someone's playing us both." She studied him, searching for a lie in his steady gaze. Before she could respond, a woman in a sequined dress called his name, pulling him into another conversation. Emma took the chance to slip away, her heart pounding. She needed evidence, not charm. The gala's layout was familiar. She'd studied the floor plan online. A hallway near the VIP lounge led to private meeting rooms where the real deals were made. If Michael were hiding something, she'd find it there. She moved quickly, her heels silent on the carpeted floor, and slipped into the shadows of the hallway. Voices drifted from a half-open door. She recognized Michael's low timbre laced with urgency. "Handle it quietly, Helen. The hospital's done if the press gets wind of how deep this goes." Emma's breath caught. She pressed closer, her back against the wall. Dr. Ruiz's voice answered, sharp and defensive. "You think I don't know that? But your company's not clean either, Michael. Someone's been skimming those contracts with our suppliers." "I'm working on it," Michael snapped. "Keep your staff in line until I figure out who's leaking this." Emma's fingers tightened around her clutch. "Working on it." That sounded like a man covering his tracks, not saving anyone. Anger surged through her, hot and sharp. She'd been right not to trust him. Without thinking, she pushed the door open, stepping into the room. Michael and Dr. Ruiz froze, their eyes wide. "Emma," Michael said, recovering first, "this isn't what it looks like." "Then what is it?" she demanded, her voice steady despite the fire in her chest. "Because it sounds like you're handling a fraud investigation by sweeping it under the rug." Dr. Ruiz stepped forward, her expression tight. "Emma, you're out of line. This is a private conversation." "Private?" Emma shot back. "When my hospital's on the line? When is my patient's care at risk?" "I don't think so." Michael raised a hand, his voice calm but firm. "Helen, give us a minute." Dr. Ruiz hesitated, nodded, and left, closing the door behind her. Michael faced Emma, his eyes searching hers. "I'm not the enemy, Emma. I'm trying to protect Mercy General. The fraud, it's not what you think. Someone's framing the hospital, and my company's caught in the crossfire." She crossed her arms, unconvinced. "Then why the secrecy? Why not go to the police?" He said, his voice dropped, "Because I don't know who to trust. And neither should you." Emma wanted to argue, to throw his words back in his face, but something in his tone stopped her, a raw edge that felt less like deception and more like desperation. She turned and left without another word, her mind racing. She didn't trust him, but she couldn't ignore the possibility that he was telling the truth. As she rejoined the gala, her phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. "You're digging too deep. Nurse Carter, back off, or your past comes to light." Her blood ran cold. She'd buried her history, her lawsuit against a crooked doctor, the whispers that had followed her for years. Whoever was behind this knew her secrets, and they were watching. The Miami sun beat down on Mercy General's parking lot, turning the asphalt into a shimmering haze. Emma Carter leaned against her car, her phone pressed to her ear as her sister's voice crackled through. "You're on the news, Em. They're saying the hospital's a mess, and your name's in the mix. What's going on?" Emma's stomach churned. "It's complicated," she said, rubbing her temple. "I'm handling it." "Handle it faster," her sister said. "This doesn't look good." Emma ended the call, her eyes drifting to the hospital's entrance. The past week had been a nightmare. The gala had left her shaken. Michael Thornton's words echoing in her head alongside that threatening text. The media frenzy had only grown, with headlines painting Mercy General as a hotbed of fraud and Michael's donation as a bribe. Worse, her colleagues had started to pull away. Whispers followed her in the break room, eyes averted when she passed. She'd worked too hard to let rumors ruin her. She headed inside her scrubs, a familiar armor. The ER was busy, but the tension was thicker than usual. Nurses avoided her gaze, and even Dr. Ruiz, usually warm, gave her a curt nod. Emma pushed through, focusing on her patients: a broken leg, a feverish child, a heart attack case. Work was her anchor, but it couldn't drown out the noise. By midday, her phone buzzed with a message from Michael. "Meet me at my office. Coral Gables, 3 p.m. We need to talk." She stared at the text, her thumb hovering over the delete button. Every instinct told her to stay away, but the threat from the gala lingered. Someone knew her past, and Michael might have answers. She typed a quick reply. "Fine. Please don't waste my time." Thornton Medical Solutions headquarters was a sleek fortress of glass and steel, its lobby starkly contrasting to Mercy General's worn linoleum. Emma felt the receptionist's eyes on her as she signed in, her scrubs out of place among the polished suits. A security guard escorted her to the top floor, where Michael waited in a corner office overlooking the city. He stood as she entered, gesturing to a leather chair. "Thanks for coming," he said, his voice steady but laced with urgency. "I know you don't trust me, but we're on the same side." Emma sat crossing her arms. "Then start talking." "Why am I here?" Michael leaned against his desk, his tie loosened. "The press is tearing us apart. My board's panicking, and your hospital's taking hits. It's coordinated. Someone's leaking lies to sink us both." She raised an eyebrow. "And can I help? I'm a nurse, not a detective." "You're smart," he said, meeting her gaze. "You see things others don't. And you're already digging, aren't you?" Emma's jaw tightened. He wasn't wrong. She'd spent nights poring over hospital records, finding patterns in the fraud claims, but admitting it felt like stepping into a trap. "What do you know about my past?" she asked instead, her voice low. Michael frowned. "Your past?" "Nothing." "Why?" She studied him, searching for a lie. The threatening text had mentioned her lawsuit, a chapter she'd buried. If Michael wasn't behind it, someone else was. "Never mind," she said. "Please show me what you've got." He slid a tablet across the desk, displaying financial records from Thornton Medical. "Look at these contracts. We supplied imaging equipment to Mercy General, but the invoices don't add up. Someone's been skimming, and it's tied to a doctor your hospital fired last year." Emma's pulse quickened. She recognized the name Dr. Larson. A surgeon had reported for falsifying records. Her lawsuit against him had cost her a job, but saved patients. "You're saying Larson's behind this?" "Not directly," Michael said. "But someone's using his old network. I need your help to trace it." Before she could respond, a low rumble shook the building. Alarms blared, and Michael's phone lit up with alerts. "That's Mercy General," he said, his voice tight. "There's been an explosion. Emma raced back to the hospital, Michael following in his own car. The ER was chaotic. Smoke lingered in the air, and patients were evacuated to the parking lot. The explosion had been small, confined to a storage room, but the damage was done. News vans were already circling, cameras flashing as staff scrambled. Emma dove into the fray, helping a nurse move an elderly patient to safety. Michael appeared beside her, his suit jacket gone, sleeves rolled up. "What can I do?" he asked, his voice steady, despite the panic. "Help with the gurneys," she said, pointing to a row of patients. "Keep them calm." He nodded, moving with surprising efficiency. For a moment, Emma watched him, struck by his willingness to jump in. But her focus snapped back as a paramedic shouted for help. Hours passed in a blur of triage and coordination, the hospital staff pulling together despite the chaos. When the dust settled, Emma and Michael stood in the parking lot, sweat-soaked and exhausted. She said you didn't have to stay, wiping her hands on her scrubs. "I wanted to," he said. "This place matters to you. That makes it matter to me." She looked at him, her defenses softening. But before she could respond, a firefighter approached. "Preliminary report says the explosion was deliberate. Gas leak may be tampered with." Emma's blood ran cold. The threatening text, the fraud, now this someone was targeting the hospital, and she was caught in the crosshairs. The acrid smell of smoke still clung to the air outside Mercy General Hospital, where the aftermath of the small explosion left staff and patients shaken. Sirens wailed in the distance as emergency crews secured the area, their flashing lights painting the dusk in red and blue. Emma Carter moved through the chaos, calmly directing patients to a makeshift triage area in the parking lot. Her scrubs were streaked with soot, her hands steady as she checked a young woman's pulse. But beneath her focus, a current of unease ran deep. The explosion was no accident, and the threatening text from the gala still burned in her mind. Michael Thornton was nearby, his suit jacket, discarded tie, loosened, as he helped push a gurney toward an ambulance. He'd stayed when he could have left, his presence a quiet anchor amid the disorder. Emma caught his eye as he steadied an elderly patient, his voice low and reassuring. For a moment she wondered who this man was, a billionaire playing hero, or something more. The evacuation slowed as the last patients were moved to safety. Emma's legs ached, but she kept pushing until a paramedic waved her off. "We've got it from here, Carter. Take a breather." She nodded, stepping back, her breath catching as Michael approached. His shirt was rumpled, a smudge of ash on his cheek, but his eyes were bright, locked on hers. "You okay?" he asked, his voice rough from shouting over the sirens. "Fine," she said, brushing her hands on her scrubs. "You didn't have to do all this." He shrugged, a faint smile tugging at his lips. "Couldn't leave you to handle it alone." Before she could respond, a gust of wind swept through, chilling the sweat on her skin. Michael's hand brushed hers as he steadied her against the breeze, and the contact sent a jolt through her. His fingers lingered for a heartbeat too long, warm and firm, before he let go. He said, nodding toward a quieter corner of the lot, "You need a break." She followed, too tired to argue. They sat on the curb near an ambulance, the hospital's silhouette looming against the fading light. Michael pulled a water bottle from a nearby cooler and handed it to her. "Drink. You've been going non-stop." Emma took it, her fingers brushing his again. She sipped the cool water, grounding her. "Why are you here, Michael?" she asked, her voice softer now. "Really?" He leaned back, staring at the sky. "I told you I want to help, but it's more than that." He paused, his gaze distant. "Growing up, I didn't have much. My mom worked 2 jobs, barely kept us afloat. When she got sick, the hospital bills nearly broke us. I promised myself I'd build something to fix that: better tech, better care. That's why I started Thornton Medical. But now," he trailed off, his jaw tight, "now it feels like someone's tearing it all down. Emma studied him, the rawness in his voice catching her off guard. She'd pegged him as a polished tycoon, all charm and control, but this was different human. "Do you think the explosion's tied to fraud?" she asked. He nodded. "It's too convenient. And I've got a name, James Riley. He's a competitor, and he used to be a friend. He's got the motive and the means to pull something like this." Emma's pulse quickened. The name didn't ring a bell, but the pieces were starting to fit. The fraud, the threats, now this. Why would he target the hospital? "To get to me," Michael said, his voice low. "If Mercy General goes down, my donation looks dirty, and my company takes the hit. It's personal." She wanted to push back to keep her walls up, but his honesty chipped away at her defenses. "If you're right," she said, "we need proof. I'm not letting my hospital or patients pay for your old grudges." He met her gaze, a spark of respect in his eyes. "Then help me find it. You're already digging, Emma. I trust you." The words hit harder than she expected. Trust wasn't something she gave easily, not after her past. But sitting there with the chaos of the hospital behind them and Michael's steady presence beside her, she felt a shift. Maybe he wasn't the enemy. A firefighter interrupted, calling Michael over to answer questions about the evacuation. Emma watched him go, her hand still tingling from where his hand had touched hers. She didn't trust him completely, but for the first time she wanted to. Emma Carter sat at her kitchen table, the glow of her laptop casting shadows across the room. It was past midnight, and the hum of Miami's nightlife faintly drifted through her apartment window. The burner phone from the hospital explosion sat in a plastic bag beside her, its screen dark but heavy with secrets. She'd spent hours cross-referencing hospital records, chasing Michael's lead about James Riley. The name was a ghost that was always out of reach in old supplier contracts and board meeting notes. But tonight, she'd found a payment trail linking Riley's company to a nurse on her floor. Her phone buzzed, Michael's name flashing on the screen. She hesitated, then answered. "It's late," she said, her voice low. "I know," he replied, sounding as tired as she felt. "But I found something. Can I come over?" Emma's instinct was to say no. Her apartment was her sanctuary, her shield against the world. But the burner phone and Riley's name changed the rules. "Fine," she said. "But don't expect coffee." 20 minutes later, Michael stood in her living room. His dress shirt wrinkled, a file folder under his arm. He looked out of place against her thrift store furniture, but his focus was sharp as he spread documents on her table. "Riley and I go way back," he said, his voice tight. "We started Thornton Medical together, but he wanted quick profits, cut corners, fake test results. I bought him out, and he's hated me ever since." Emma leaned over the papers, her eyes scanning a contract with Riley's signature. "So he's framing you. And the hospital?" Michael nodded. "He's got the connections to pull it off, suppliers, insiders. That explosion, it's his style. Hit hard, then disappear." She tapped the burner phone. "This was in the storage room. I traced a number to a nurse on my shift. Sarah. She's been acting off, taking calls in private. You think Riley got to her?" Michael's eyes darkened. "Maybe, but we need proof. If we confront her without it, she'll bolt." Emma's jaw tightened. Sarah had been her friend, her confidant through long shifts. The betrayal stung, but she'd learned long ago not to let emotions cloud her judgment. "I'll talk to her," she said. "But you need to be straight with me, Michael. No more secrets. If I'm in this, I'm all in." He held her gaze, the weight of her words settling between them. "Deal," he said. "No secrets. You have my word." She nodded, but the burner phone's presence gnawed at her. "Then let's start with this," she said, sliding it toward him. "We trace the calls and we find Riley. The next day, Emma cornered Sarah in the hospital break room, the hum of the vending machine masking their conversation. Sarah's eyes darted her hands, fidgeting with a coffee cup. "You've been jumpy," Emma said, keeping her tone neutral. "Something you want to tell me?" Sarah's shoulders stiffened. "I don't know what you mean." "I mean the phone calls," Emma said, stepping closer. "The ones you take in the stairwell. The burner phone from the explosion. You're working with someone, Sarah. Who is it?" Sarah's face crumpled, tears welling. "I didn't want to," she whispered. "He paid me to pass information such as billing codes and patient files. Said it was for a study. I didn't know about the explosion, Emma. I swear." "Who?" Emma pressed her voice low but firm. "James Riley." Sarah nodded, her voice barely audible. "He said he'd ruin me if I didn't help. I've got debts, my kid's sick. I had no choice." Emma's chest tightened, anger mixing with pity. "You always have a choice," she said. "Help me stop him, Sarah. Tell me everything." Sarah agreed, her confession spilling out. Dates, payments, even a meeting spot where Riley's contact had picked up files. Emma recorded it all, her resolve hardening. Riley wasn't just targeting Michael. He was tearing through everyone she cared about. That night, she met Michael at a quiet diner, and the evidence lay between them. He listened, his expression grim. "This is enough to nail him," he said. "But we need to move fast. Riley's not done." As they planned, Emma's phone buzzed with a new message, a video link. She opened it, her blood running cold. It was grainy footage of Michael handing an envelope to a man in a suit, the caption claiming it was proof of bribery. The sender was anonymous, but the message was clear. "You're next, Carter." The Miami skyline glittered beyond Thornton Medical Solutions boardroom windows, but the atmosphere inside was suffocating. Michael Thornton stood at the head of the table, his jaw tight as he faced a room of skeptical board members. The fake bribery video had spread like wildfire across news outlets, and social media painting him as a corrupt CEO trying to buy his way out of the Mercy General fraud scandal. His company's stock was plummeting, and the board was restless, their questions sharp and accusing. "We can't ignore this," Michael said. "Evelyn Grant, a silver-haired board member with a lawyer's precision. The video looks damning. If you're bribing officials, we need to know." "It's a fake," Michael said, his voice steady but edged with frustration. "James Riley's behind it. He's been gunning for me since I bought him out. I've got evidence, financial records, a witness. I'm taking him to court for defamation." The room murmured, unconvinced. Michael slid a folder across the table, containing Sarah's confession and the flash drive Emma had secured. "This ties Riley to the hospital fraud and the explosion. He's manipulating everything to tank us." Evelyn skimmed the documents, her expression unreadable. "This is a start, but the public doesn't care about evidence. They see a video. We need a counter-narrative." Michael nodded, his mind already on the plan he'd been forming. "I'm launching a free community health program through Mercy General. Screenings, vaccinations, no cost. It'll show we're committed to care, not corruption." The board exchanged glances, some nodding, others skeptical. "It's risky," Evelyn said. "If the fraud investigation deepens, this could look like a publicity stunt." "It's not a stunt," Michael said, his voice firm. "It's what I built this company for." As the meeting ended, Michael's thoughts turned to Emma Carter. She'd been the key to unraveling Riley's scheme, her courage and sharp instincts cutting through the noise. He needed her on this health program, not just for her skills, but because working with her felt like the only thing keeping him grounded. Across town, Emma stood in Mercy General's parking lot, organizing a makeshift tent for Michael's proposed community health event. The hospital was still reeling from the explosion, but the idea of free care had rallied the staff. Nurses set up tables for blood pressure checks, while volunteers handed out water bottles under the blazing Miami sun. Emma's scrubs were damp with sweat, but she moved with purpose, directing the flow of patients. Michael arrived, his suit swapped for a polo shirt and jeans, a clipboard in hand. He looked out of place among the chaos, but his presence was steady, like a lighthouse in a storm. He said, "You've got this under control," falling into step beside her. "Barely," Emma replied, adjusting a stack of intake forms. "But people need this. Half these folks haven't seen a doctor in years." He nodded, his eyes scanning the crowd. "You're making a difference, more than I ever could behind a desk." She glanced at him, caught off guard by the sincerity in his voice. She'd kept him at arm's length for weeks, wary of his charm and money. But she felt a shift seeing him here, rolling up his sleeves and checking names off a list. He wasn't just a billionaire throwing cash at a problem, he was in it like she was. They worked side by side, Emma triaging patients while Michael coordinated supplies. Between tasks, their hands brushed, their eyes met, and the air crackled with something unspoken. He handed her a bottle of water, during a lull, his fingers lingering on hers. "You're good at this," he said, echoing his words from their first meeting in the ER. "Not just the nursing. The way you keep people calm." She took a sip, hiding a smile. "Comes with the job. You're not bad yourself for a suit." He laughed, the sound easing the tension in her chest. For a moment, the fraud, the explosion. Riley's threats, they all faded. It was just them, two people trying to do some good. But the moment was shattered when her phone buzzed with a new text from an unknown number. "Stay away from Thornton, or you'll regret it." Emma's grip tightened, her heart pounding. She showed Michael the screen, her voice low. "Riley's not done." His face hardened. "He's desperate. That's why he's lashing out." "We're close, Emma. We'll stop him." She nodded, but the threat lingered like a shadow. Their shared purpose pulled them closer as the health event continued, but the danger was far from over. Emma Carter sat in the hospital's break room, the fluorescent lights casting harsh shadows on the linoleum floor. Her laptop was open, and a spreadsheet of supplier invoices glowed on the screen. The community health event had been a triumph, but the threatening texts hadn't stopped. The latest one, received just hours ago, was blunt. "Stop digging, or your career ends." She'd traced the hospital's supplier payments to a shell company tied to James Riley, and now she had a name, Mark Evans, a nurse on her floor who'd been too quick to volunteer for inventory shifts. Emma's fingers hovered over the keyboard. Confronting Mark was risky. He could be Riley's mole, feeding him hospital data. But sitting still wasn't an option. She'd fought too hard to let someone like Riley destroy her hospital. Closing her laptop, she grabbed her phone and texted Michael. "Found something. Meet me at Mercy General. Now." He arrived within the hour, his expression tense but focused. The hospital was quiet, and a skeleton crew was on the night shift. They met in an empty conference room, the air heavy with the weight of what they were about to do. Emma laid out the invoices, pointing to a series of overcharges. These came from a supplier Riley controls. Mark Evans signed off on them. He's been working with Riley, passing him billing codes and inventory logs. Michael's eyes narrowed as he scanned the documents. "Mark's your mole. If we get him to talk, we can tie Riley to the fraud and the explosion." Emma nodded, her resolve steeling. "I'll confront him. He's on shift tonight, but I need you to back me up." "You've got me," Michael said, his voice steady. "Let's do this." They found Mark in the storage room restocking bandages. He froze when Emma called his name, his hands trembling as he turned. "Hey, Emma," he said, forcing a smile. "What's up?" She stepped closer, her voice calm but firm. "I know you're working with Riley. The invoice is the burner phone. It all points to you. Tell me the truth, Mark. Now." His face paled, his eyes darting to Michael, who stood by the door, arms crossed. Mark stammered, I don't know what you're talking about. Don't lie, Emma said, her tone sharp. I've got the records. You signed off on fake deliveries and passed patient data to Riley. Why? Mark's shoulders slumped, his voice breaking. He paid me. Said it was just business, no one would get hurt. I needed the money, my mom's in chemo. I didn't know about the explosion, I swear. Emma's anger flared, but she saw the desperation in his eyes. She'd heard it before from Sarah. Riley preyed on people's weaknesses. You're going to help us, she said. Tell us everything, dates, payments. What Riley wanted. Do it and we'll keep you out of jail. Mark nodded, tears streaming down his face. He spilled it all, how Riley had approached him months ago, promising cash for small favors that grew into fraud. Emma recorded every word, her heart pounding with triumph and dread. This was the break they needed, but Riley was slippery. He wouldn't go down easily. As they left the storage room, Michael touched her arm, his voice low. You were incredible back there. Most people would have backed off. Emma met his gaze, the warmth of his words softening her edges. I don't back off, she said. Not when it's about protecting my patients. He smiled, a quiet admiration in his eyes. I know. That's why I trust you. Her phone buzzed before she could respond. Another anonymous text, this one with a photo of her and Michael at the health event, their heads bent close. The message read, Riley's not done. He's got one last secret about Thornton. Watch your back. Emma showed Michael, her pulse racing. What's he talking about? She asked. What's Riley holding over you? Michael's face tightened, but he didn't look away. I don't know, he said. But whatever it is, we'll face it together. The Miami sun hung low, casting long shadows across the parking lot of Mercy General Hospital. Emma Carter leaned against her car. Her phone clutched tightly as she reread the latest anonymous text. Thornton's hiding a dirty secret. Riley's not the only one with blood on his hands. The words sent a chill through her, despite the humid air. James Riley's arrest had been a victory, but his cryptic promise of a final revelation about Michael Thornton gnawed at her. She'd come too far to let secrets unravel everything. Inside the hospital, the mood was tense but hopeful. The community health event had restored some faith in Mercy General, and Mark's confession had given prosecutors enough to charge Riley with fraud and sabotage. Emma should have felt relieved, but the weight of the unknown kept her on edge. She needed to confront Michael, not just about Riley's threat, but about the trust growing between them, fragile and untested. She found him at Thornton Medical Solutions headquarters, his office starkly contrasting the hospital's chaos. Floor-to-ceiling windows framed the glittering Biscayne Bay, but Michael's desk contained legal documents and coffee cups. He looked up as she entered, his tie loosened, a faint smile breaking through his exhaustion. Emma, he said, standing. Didn't expect you this early. We need to talk, she said, closing the door behind her. Riley's hinting at something about you. A secret. What's he got, Michael? His smile faded, his eyes searching hers. She thought he'd deflect for a moment, but he gestured to a chair. Sit. I'll tell you everything. Emma sat, her hands clasped tightly in her lap. Michael paced, his voice low as he began. Years ago, when starting Thornton Medical, I worked with a doctor, Dr. Larson. The same one you reported. He was brilliant, but reckless, cutting corners on clinical trials to rush a new imaging device to market. I found out too late. One patient didn't make it. He stopped, his jaw tight. I should have reported him, but I was young, scared of losing everything. I covered it, paid off the family, and buried the records. Larson walked, and I've carried that guilt ever since. Emma's breath caught. She'd expected a scandal, but not this. A death, a cover-up. You let him keep practicing? She asked, her voice sharp. After what he did, Michael met her gaze unflinching. I thought I was protecting the company, the people who believed in me. It was a mistake, one I've spent years trying to fix. That's why I fund hospitals, why I donated to Mercy General. I'm not perfect, Emma. I never claimed to be. She stood, her emotions warring anger at his choice, empathy for his regret. She'd seen the cost of silence in her career when she'd blown the whistle on Larson and lost everything. But looking at Michael, she saw a man haunted, not a villain. Why didn't you tell me sooner, she asked. I was afraid you'd walk away, he admitted. You're the first person in a long time who makes me want to be better. The confession hit her hard, stirring something she wasn't ready to name. Before she could respond, her phone buzzed with a call from Dr. Ruiz. Emma, we need you at the hospital. Reporters are here asking about Thornton's past. They've got documents, something about a patient death. Emma's eyes locked with Michael's. Riley, she said. He's leaking your secret. Michael nodded, his expression grim. Then we face it, together. Later that day, they visited a place Michael hadn't mentioned before, a small orphanage in Little Havana, funded by his foundation. The modest building buzzed with children's laughter, their voices echoing through a courtyard filled with colorful murals. Michael led Emma inside, his posture softening as a group of kids ran to greet him, calling his name. He knelt, handing out soccer balls, his smile genuine, but tinged with something more profound. This place, he said, as they walked through a garden, is where I find meaning. These kids are why I keep going, even when it feels like the world's falling apart. Emma watched him, her anger softening. She saw the man behind the title, not a billionaire, but someone trying to make amends. I get it, she said quietly. I've got my own ghosts. Reporting on Larson cost me a job, friends, everything. But I'd do it again for the truth. He stopped, turning to her. That's why I need you, Emma. You don't bend. You don't run. Their eyes held the air between them, charged. For a moment the world narrowed to just them, the kids' laughter, the rustle of palm trees, the weight of shared scars. Emma felt the pull, but the hospital's crisis loomed, pulling her back. We've got work to do, she said, breaking the moment. Riley's not done, and neither are we. The newsroom lights glared down on Michael Thornton as he faced a sea of reporters in Thornton Medical Solutions lobby. The leaked documents about the patient's death had ignited a firestorm, with headlines branding him a liar and Mercy General a fraud hub. He'd called the press conference to set the record straight, but his past mistake weighed against his chest. Emma stood off to the side, her presence a quiet anchor. They'd spent the night strategizing, her sharp mind cutting through his panic to craft a plan. Full transparency. No excuses. Michael cleared his throat, his voice steady as he addressed the cameras. Years ago, I made a mistake. I covered up a clinical trial error that led to a patient's death. I was wrong, and I've carried that guilt every day. But I'm not hiding anymore. Thornton Medical is stepping back from profit-driven contracts. I'm resigning as CEO to focus on a new venture, a nonprofit dedicated to free healthcare for underserved communities. The room erupted in questions, but Michael's eyes found Emma's. Her nod, subtle but firm, gave him the strength to continue. Mercy General is not the problem, he said. James Riley, a former partner with a grudge, orchestrated the fraud allegations. We've provided evidence to the authorities, and I trust they'll deliver justice. As the conference ended, Emma joined him, her expression unreadable. That was brave, she said quietly. Stepping down, that's a lot to give up. It's not about giving up, he said, his voice low. It's about doing what's right. You showed me that. She looked away, her fingers tightening around her phone. The threats hadn't stopped. A new one had come that morning, warning her to stay away from Michael, or face a lawsuit from a disgruntled patient. She'd traced it to a fake email, likely Riley's last attempt to sow chaos. "We're not clear yet," she said. "Someone's trying to pin a malpractice suit on me. It's got Riley's fingerprints all over it." Michael's jaw tightened. "Then we fight it. Together." That evening, Emma invited Michael to her apartment, which was her first time. The space was small, but warm, filled with books and photos of her family. She cooked a simple dinner, grilled chicken rice and plantains, her hands moving with the same precision she brought to the ER. Michael sat at her tiny kitchen table, watching her with a quiet intensity. "You didn't have to do this," he said, as she set a plate in front of him. "I wanted to," she replied, sitting across from him. "You're not the only one trying to make things right." Over dinner, they talked not about Riley or the hospital, but about dreams. Emma shared her vision of a free clinic in Little Havana, where anyone could walk in and get care. Michael listened, his eyes bright with something that felt like hope. "I want to help," he said. "The nonprofit. I want it to fund your clinic. We could make it real." Emma's heart skipped, but she kept her voice steady. "That's a considerable promise. You sure you're ready to trade boardrooms for community work?" He smiled, leaning closer. "With you, I'm ready for anything." The moment hung between them, heavy with possibility. But her phone buzzed, shattering the quiet. It was Dr. Ruiz, her voice urgent. "Emma, we've got a problem. A patient's family is threatening to sue you for negligence. They're citing records from the night of the explosion that don't exist." Emma's blood ran cold. "It's Riley," she said to Michael, her voice tight. "He's trying to ruin me." Michael stood, his hand brushing hers. "Then we prove he's lying. We've got the truth on our side." The morning sun bathed Little Havana in a golden glow, its vibrant streets alive with the hum of anticipation. Emma Carter stood at the center of a bustling community health fair, culminating weeks of planning with Michael Thornton. Tents lined the park, offering free screenings, vaccinations, and health education to residents who rarely saw a doctor. Volunteers in bright shirts handed out water and flyers, while children darted between tables, their laughter cutting through the chatter. Emma's scrubs were crisp, her stethoscope a familiar weight around her neck, but her mind was on edge. The fake malpractice claim against her still loomed, a shadow cast by James Riley's final act of revenge. Michael moved through the crowd, coordinating with vendors and shaking hands with community leaders. His resignation as CEO of Thornton Medical Solutions had dominated headlines. Still today, he was just Michael, sleeves rolled up, clipboard in hand, his focus on making the event a success. Emma watched him, her chest tightening with admiration, and something deeper, something she wasn't ready to name. Their partnership had carried them through fraud, sabotage, and threats, but this moment felt like a turning point. As she checked a patient's blood pressure, her phone buzzed with a text from Dr. Ruiz's lawyers found discrepancies in the malpractice records. "Meet me after the fair. We've got Riley's number." Emma's pulse quickened. She glanced at Michael, who was helping a volunteer set up a flu shot station. He caught her eye, offering a slight nod, as if sensing her tension. They were in this together, and today they'd prove it. The fair was a triumph. Lines formed at every tent, with nurses and doctors working tirelessly to serve hundreds. Emma moved between stations, her efficiency a quiet force amid the chaos. Michael stayed close, his presence steadying her. During a brief lull, he pulled her aside, handing her a bottle of water. "You're a natural at this," he said, his voice warm. "This is what you were meant to do." She took the water, her fingers brushing his. "We're doing it," she corrected. "This wouldn't have happened without you." He smiled, but before he could respond, a reporter approached, microphone in hand. "Mr. Thornton, Ms. Carter, can we get a statement? The fraud case against Mercy General is collapsing, and Riley's been linked to the fake malpractice claim. Care to comment? Emma tensed, but Michael stepped forward, his voice calm. The truth is coming out. Mercy General is a lifeline for this community, and we're here to prove it. As for Riley, he's facing justice. That's all I'll say. The reporter turned to Emma, but she shook her head. I'm here for the patients, not the cameras. Michael's hand grazed her arm as the reporter moved on a silent thank you. The fair was winding down by late afternoon, and Emma met Dr. Ruiz at a nearby cafe. The hospital administrator slid a folder across the table, her eyes sharp. The malpractice claims a fraud. The patient records were altered using a backdated server login traced to Riley's shell company. We've got enough to clear you and bury him. Emma exhaled relief washing over her. And the hospital? Cleared too, Dr. Ruiz said. Your work with Thornton digging up Riley's financials, getting Mark and Sarah to talk saved us. Emma nodded, her thoughts drifting to Michael. He'd risked everything, his company, his reputation, to stand by her. As she left the cafe, she found him waiting outside, leaning against his car. The setting sun cast a warm glow over him, softening the lines of his face. Without thinking, she stepped closer, her voice low. We did it. The hospital's clear. I'm clear. He smiled, a weight lifting from his shoulders. I knew we would. He paused, his eyes searching hers. Emma. She cut him off, her hand finding his. Later, she said, a smile tugging at her lips. Let's celebrate first. That evening at the fair's closing ceremony, Emma and Michael stood side by side on a small stage. The crowd was a mix of volunteers, patients, and community members, their applause warm and genuine. Emma spoke first, her voice steady. This is what Mercy General is about. Care, community, hope. Thank you for trusting us. Michael followed his words, heartfelt but straightforward. This is just the start. We're building something bigger, a future where no one's left behind. As he spoke, his hand found Emma's, their fingers intertwining. The crowd noticed a murmur rippling through, but Emma didn't pull away. She felt it for the first time, the connection, the possibility. As the event ended, a courier delivered a sealed envelope to Emma. Inside was a letter from James Riley, written from jail. I was wrong. Jealousy drove me to ruin you, Thornton. I'm sorry. Emma showed it to Michael, her voice quiet. He's admitting it. Michael's jaw tightened, but he nodded. It's over. Let's move forward. Little Havana pulsed with life as Emma Carter and Michael Thornton stood before a modest building, its freshly painted sign reading Havana Hope Clinic. The free clinic, their shared dream, was ready for its grand opening. Banners fluttered in the breeze, and a crowd of community members, volunteers, and hospital staff gathered, their chatter mingling with the rhythm of a nearby salsa band. Emma adjusted her stethoscope, her heart swelling with pride. She'd fought for this, a place where care came first, no questions asked. Michael stood beside her, his suit replaced by a simple button-down, his eyes bright with purpose. The past months had tested them. Fraud, sabotage, personal demons. But they'd come through stronger together. James Riley's schemes were behind them, his confession and arrest, dismantling the lies threatening Mercy General and Thornton Medical. The malpractice claim against Emma had been dismissed, and the hospital's reputation was restored. But today wasn't about the past. It was about the future. The ribbon-cutting ceremony began with Dr. Ruiz introducing Emma and Michael to the crowd. These two, she said, her voice carrying over the applause, turned a crisis into hope. This clinic is their legacy. Emma stepped to the microphone, her voice steady. This isn't just a building. It's a promise to serve, to heal, to listen. Thank you for being part of it. She glanced at Michael, her smile soft but sure. He took her hand, a quiet gesture that felt like a vow. As the crowd cheered, Michael leaned close, his voice low. "I've got something for you." He pulled a small box from his pocket, revealing a silver ring with a delicate caduceus symbol etched into it. "Emma Carter," he said, his voice steady but thick with emotion. "You've changed my life. Marry me. Build this with me." The crowd hushed, eyes wide. Emma's breath caught her heart racing. She'd guarded herself for so long, but looking at Michael, his honesty, strength, and belief in her, she knew her answer. "Yes," she said, her voice breaking with a laugh. "Yes." The crowd erupted, cheers and whistles filling the air as Michael slipped the ring onto her finger. They kissed, brief but fierce, sealing their commitment before the community they'd fought for. The band struck up a lively tune, and the celebration spilled into the streets with food trucks and laughter under the Miami sun. Later, inside the clinic, Emma and Michael worked side by side, seeing the first patients. A young mother brought in her son, whose cough was persistent but treatable. Emma diagnosed him, her hands gentle, as she prescribed medication, while Michael ensured the pharmacy was stocked. As the boy left smiling for the first time, Emma felt a surge of purpose. This was why they'd fought. Michael caught her eye, his smile mirroring her own. "We did well today," he said. "We're just getting started," she replied, her hand finding his. That evening, a letter arrived from Riley and was forwarded from the prison. It was brief, an apology for his actions, admitting jealousy had driven him to destroy Michael's legacy. "You won it," read. "Build something better." Emma tucked it away, its weight lighter than the clinic's promise. As the day ended, a final patient arrived, an older man, frail but grateful, whose heart condition had been caught just in time. Emma and Michael worked together to stabilize him, their hands moving in sync. As the man thanked them, his eyes teary, Emma felt the truth of their mission to heal, hope, and endure.